Let me tell you something most people get wrong about letting go. They think letting go means you lost. They think it means you gave up. They think it means you didn't care enough to fight. But that's not what letting go peacefully is. Letting go peacefully is strength in its quietest form. And let me tell you something else. That quiet strength, that's exactly what pulls him back. Let me tell you something about power, because most people misunderstand where power really lies. Power does not live in arguing. Power does not live in explaining yourself for the 10th time. Power does not live in chasing someone who already knows how you feel. Real power lives in what you do when you decide to stop reacting. And that's why letting go peacefully changes everything, because the moment you stop fighting to be understood, the power quietly shifts back into your hands. See, when you're emotional, when you're upset, when you're trying to fix things with words, a man feels like he still has control of the situation. He knows you're invested. He knows you're waiting. He knows he can take his time because you're right there, emotionally available, emotionally open, emotionally present. But when you let go peacefully, without bitterness, without anger, without drama, something inside him gets uncomfortable, because now he doesn't know where he stands anymore. A peaceful exit is confusing to a man. He expects resistance. He expects questions. He expects tears. What he doesn't expect is calm. He doesn't expect you to say less instead of more. He doesn't expect you to stop pushing. And when you don't give him the reaction he's prepared for, his mind starts filling in the gaps all on its own. Letting go peacefully tells a man you are not dependent on his validation. And that's a powerful message. You're not saying, "You hurt me, fix this." You're not saying, "Please choose me." You're saying nothing at all, and that silence speaks louder than any argument ever could, because now he has to sit with his thoughts. He has to ask himself questions you were asking out loud before. And men hate unanswered questions more than emotional conversations. When you stop chasing, the dynamic changes. Before, you were leaning in and he was leaning back. When you let go peacefully, you stop leaning altogether. And now, if anyone is going to move, it has to be him. That's not manipulation. That's balance. That's you refusing to carry the emotional weight of a relationship by yourself. Here's the thing most people don't realize. A man doesn't feel the impact of your presence while you're constantly available. He feels it when it's gone, when your good morning texts disappear, when your understanding nature is no longer there to soften his rough edges, when the woman who made life easier suddenly removes herself with grace. That absence hits harder because it came without a fight. Peaceful letting go also protects your dignity. You don't give him a moment he can later use to justify his behavior. He can't say you were dramatic. He can't say you were toxic. He can't say you pushed him away. All he can say is that you walked away with class. And that realization sits heavy, because now the responsibility is fully on him. Men respect what feels self-controlled. When you stay calm, when you don't react emotionally, when you don't beg for clarity, it signals emotional maturity. It tells him you know who you are and what you deserve. And that kind of confidence is magnetic, not loud confidence, quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't need applause. Letting go peacefully doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough about yourself not to lose your identity trying to keep someone else comfortable. And when a man realizes you didn't break without him, that you didn't collapse, that you didn't chase after what walked away, something in his perception changes. That's when the power shift becomes real. Because now he's the one thinking. He's the one wondering. He's the one replaying moments. All because you chose peace over pressure. Let me explain something about men and emotion. because this is where most people get confused. A man does not process loss the same way a woman does. When things are loud, emotional, dramatic, and heavy, he stays focused on the chaos, not the consequence. He remembers the argument, not the absence. But when you let go peacefully, when there's no drama attached to your exit, the loss hits him in a completely different way. See, drama gives a man something to blame. If there's yelling, crying, accusations, and long explanations, he can tell himself the relationship ended because it was too much. He can convince himself he needed space from the noise. But when you leave calmly, when you stop arguing and simply step back, you take that excuse away from him. Now he can't blame the breakup on emotions. Now he has to face the truth that the only thing missing is you. A peaceful exit leaves a man alone with his thoughts, and that's dangerous territory for him. Because without drama to distract him, his mind starts replaying moments. Not the fights, not the tension. He remembers your presence, your energy, the way you showed up when no one else did, and that's when the loss starts to sink in, not all at once, but slowly, deeply, and honestly. When you walk away without anger, you don't give him closure. And men don't like unfinished emotional business. He expects a final conversation. He expects a last argument. He expects you to fight for him. When none of that happens, his mind keeps searching for answers that aren't there. And unanswered questions stay longer than explained ones. Letting go peacefully also removes the emotional payoff. When you react strongly, when you express pain openly, a man still feels important. He still feels chosen. He still feels like he mattered enough to break you. But when you remain calm, when you don't collapse emotionally in front of him, it sends a message he wasn't prepared for. It tells him he didn't destroy you. And that realization messes with his ego. A man feels lost most deeply when he realizes you didn't need him to survive. When your life continues, when your peace remains intact, when he sees you didn't fall apart the way he expected, that's when regret begins to creep in. Because now he understands you weren't holding on to him out of weakness. You were choosing him. And there's a big difference between being chosen and being needed. Drama keeps a man emotionally distant. Peace draws him closer mentally. When there's no chaos, no anger, no emotional tug of war, his defenses drop. He starts wondering why you were able to walk away so calmly. He starts questioning whether he underestimated your strength, and that curiosity becomes heavier than guilt. A peaceful goodbye also forces accountability. Without conflict, there's no distraction. He can't say, we both messed up. He can't say, it was toxic on both sides. All he can say is that you handled things with grace. And that puts the spotlight directly on his choices. Men don't miss chaos. They miss comfort. They miss consistency. They miss the woman who made their life feel stable. And when you remove yourself quietly, without trying to prove a point, the comfort you once provided becomes noticeable by its absence. That's when the loss turns real. Letting go peacefully allows the impact to land where it matters most, in his heart, not his pride. Because pride can fight drama, but it cannot fight silence. Let me tell you why silence becomes so powerful when you stop talking and start letting go. Silence isn't empty. Silence is space, and space is where a man finally hears his own thoughts. When you remove your voice from the situation, when you stop explaining how you feel, when you stop asking for clarity, you give his mind room to replay everything you used to say. That's why silence works in ways arguments never do. A man gets used to you being the emotional narrator of the relationship. You explain what's wrong. You explain how you feel. You explain what you need. And while you think you're helping him understand, what you're actually doing is taking away his responsibility to think. When you let go peacefully and go quiet, he has to do that work himself for the first time. Silence creates reflection. When there's no message waiting, no missed calls, no emotional check-ins, his routine is disrupted. He reaches for his phone and realizes there's nothing there. That moment is small, but it's powerful, because that's when he feels the shift. That's when he starts noticing the space you once filled without even trying. Words can be argued with. Silence cannot. When you explain yourself, a man can defend, justify, or minimize your feelings. But when you stop talking, there's nothing to push against, no debate, no argument, just absence, and absence forces awareness. A peaceful silence also removes the illusion of control. When you're still emotionally engaged, still reacting, still responding, he knows he has access to you. He knows he can pull you back into the conversation whenever he wants. But when you let go quietly, that access disappears. And men notice when doors close without being slammed. Silence doesn't accuse. It doesn't attack. It simply exists. And that's what makes it heavy, because now his mind fills in the meaning. He starts wondering if you're done for good. He starts questioning whether he pushed too far. He starts asking himself questions you used to ask out loud, and unanswered questions have a way of staying awake at night. When you let go peacefully, you also take your emotional energy with you. That energy was what made him feel seen, supported, and understood. When it's gone, he feels the emotional cold, not in a dramatic way, but in a subtle, unsettling way. And subtle discomfort lingers longer than loud pain. Silence shows emotional maturity. It signals that you don't need to explain yourself to be validated, that you trust your actions more than your words. That kind of self-control commands respect, even from someone who didn't fully appreciate you while you were there. A man starts to realize that the peace you brought into his life wasn't automatic. It came from you. And now that peace is missing, not because of an argument, not because of a fight, but because you chose to step back. That realization hits deeper because it feels earned, not forced. When you stop talking, he starts listening, not to you, but to his conscience. He remembers moments where you were patient, moments where you gave more than you received, moments where you stayed calm when you had every reason not to. And those memories carry weight because they arrive without you reminding him. Letting go peacefully through silence doesn't make you invisible. It makes you unforgettable. Because now, instead of hearing your voice, he feels your absence. And absence has a way of saying everything you never needed to explain. Let me tell you something about curiosity, because curiosity is a powerful thing in a man's mind. When everything is explained, when every emotion is laid out, when every reaction is predictable, curiosity dies. But when you detach peacefully, when you stop giving access to your thoughts and feelings, curiosity wakes up. And once a man's curiosity is triggered, his mind does not rest easily. A man is used to knowing where he stands with you. Even when things are rocky, even when there's distance, he usually knows you're still there emotionally. He knows you're thinking about him. He knows you're waiting for clarity. But when you let go calmly, when you stop checking in, when you stop seeking reassurance, that certainty disappears. And uncertainty is what pulls his attention back. Peaceful detachment removes predictability. You're no longer reacting the way he expects. You're no longer available on demand. You're no longer emotionally open for late night conversations that go nowhere. That shift makes him wonder what changed. And once a man starts wondering, he starts watching. When you detach without anger, you don't trigger his defenses. Anger gives him something to push against. It allows him to justify distance, but calmness disarms him. He can't label you as dramatic. He can't blame your emotions. He's left trying to understand your strength instead. And strength without explanation is intriguing. A man begins to question whether he underestimated you. He wonders how you were able to walk away so smoothly. He expected pain. He expected resistance. He expected you to fight for answers. But instead, you chose peace, and that choice forces him to re-evaluate how much you truly valued yourself. Curiosity deepens when he realizes you didn't replace him emotionally. You didn't rush to show him you were fine. You didn't perform happiness for his attention. You simply disappeared into your own life. That silence creates mystery, and mystery has a way of pulling people back in. Peaceful detachment also triggers accountability. When there's no conflict, no accusations, no blame, he can't hide behind excuses. He can't say the situation was complicated by emotions. All he sees is the distance and the role he played in creating it. That realization is uncomfortable, and discomfort leads to reflection. Men are natural problem solvers. When something ends loudly, they close the chapter and move on. But when something ends quietly, without resolution, it feels unfinished. And unfinished situations stay active in the mind. He starts thinking about what he could have done differently, what he didn't say, what he failed to notice. Detaching peacefully also shifts the power dynamic. You're no longer seeking validation. You're no longer asking to be chosen. You've chosen yourself, and self-chosen energy changes how a man perceives you. You're no longer just someone who cared. You're someone who knew when to walk away. A man becomes drawn back not because he feels pressured, but because he feels challenged. Not challenged by arguments, but by your composure, by your restraint, by your ability to leave without needing the last word. That kind of emotional discipline is rare, and rarity creates value. When you let go peacefully, you stop chasing answers and start becoming the question. And once you become the question, his mind keeps coming back, trying to figure you out. Let me tell you something about neediness versus confidence, because this is where everything changes. A man can feel when he is needed, and a man can feel when he is wanted. And those two feelings do not hit the same place in his heart. When you are chasing, explaining, holding on too tight, he feels needed. But when you let go peacefully, when you stop reaching and stop reminding him of your presence, he starts to realize you were choosing him, not clinging to him. A man does not fully respect what feels emotionally dependent on him. He might enjoy the attention, he might enjoy the comfort, but deep down it doesn't challenge him. What challenges a man is knowing a woman is complete on her own and still decided to be with him. When you let go calmly, you remove the idea that your happiness depends on his behavior, and that realization shifts how he sees you. See, when you're constantly available, constantly understanding, constantly forgiving, a man starts to assume that no matter what he does, you'll still be there, not because he doesn't care, but because human nature gets comfortable. Letting go peacefully interrupts that comfort. It forces him to face the possibility that access to you was a privilege, not a guarantee. When you stop trying to hold the connection together by yourself, the emotional imbalance becomes clear. Before, you were carrying the weight. You were initiating conversations. You were smoothing things over. You were keeping the emotional door open. When you step back, he feels that drop, and that's when he realizes how much effort you were actually putting in. Peaceful letting go also sends a powerful message about standards. You're not saying, I can't live without you. You're saying, I won't stay where I'm not valued. And men understand standards more than speeches. You don't have to announce your boundaries when your actions already speak for you. A man begins to reflect when he notices you didn't try to compete for his attention. You didn't demand reassurance. You didn't pressure him to show up differently. You simply removed yourself, and that forces him to ask a difficult question. Was he meeting you where you deserved to be met? Men are wired to pursue what feels meaningful. When you chase, you remove the chase from him. But when you let go peacefully, you give him space to step forward. And if he doesn't, that space still protects your dignity. Either way, you win by not losing yourself. Letting go calmly also breaks the emotional script he expected. He anticipated sadness. He anticipated guilt-inducing messages. He anticipated one last conversation where you tried to save things. When that never happens, his mind struggles to process the ending, because now there's no emotional scene to close the chapter. A man starts replaying the relationship differently when he realizes you didn't need to prove your worth. You didn't try to convince him to choose you. You trusted that the right person would recognize your value without pressure. That level of self-trust is rare, and rarity creates respect. Peaceful detachment also removes the emotional safety net he relied on. He was used to knowing you would understand his silence, that you would excuse his inconsistency, that you would stay patient. When that patience quietly disappears, he feels exposed. And exposure leads to self-examination. A man feels drawn back when he realizes the woman he lost didn't collapse. She didn't beg. She didn't become bitter. She simply kept her peace. That kind of strength forces him to reevaluate his role in the relationship, because now he sees that you weren't staying because you had no options. You were staying because you cared. Letting go peacefully makes him confront the difference between attention and presence. You didn't just give him messages. You gave him emotional space, understanding, warmth. And once that's gone, he understands what he took for granted. When you choose peace, you stop auditioning for love. You stop trying to earn consistency. You step into a space where you no longer need to prove anything. And that shift is exactly what makes a man stop, look back, and question whether he let something valuable walk away. Let me tell you something about self-respect, because this is the part most people overlook when they talk about letting go. Letting go peacefully is not about hoping he comes back. It's about choosing yourself even if he never does. And that energy right there is what shifts everything. When you stop centering your decisions around his reactions, a man starts feeling something he didn't expect: displacement. A man is comfortable when he knows he is the emotional center of your world, even if he's inconsistent, even if he's distant. There's security in knowing you're still emotionally available. When you let go peacefully, that security disappears. Not with anger, not with punishment, but with calm finality. And that's unsettling, because now he's no longer the axis your emotions revolve around. Peaceful detachment tells a man you're not afraid of being alone. And that's powerful. Fear keeps people stuck. Confidence lets them walk away without looking back. When you stop trying to hold on to the connection, when you stop adjusting yourself to keep his attention, he begins to realize that you were never trapped. You were choosing him. And choice carries weight. A man feels it when you no longer react the same way, when his silence no longer triggers your anxiety, when his inconsistency no longer pulls emotional responses out of you. That change doesn't go unnoticed. He starts to feel like he lost access, not to you physically, but to your emotional world. And emotional access is what made him feel important. Letting go peacefully also forces a man to face himself without distraction. There's no argument to hide behind, no emotional chaos to blame, just stillness. And stillness reflects truth. He begins to see patterns he ignored, moments where you showed up and he didn't, effort you gave that he assumed would always be there. Men don't always realize the value of consistency until it's gone. They mistake it for something automatic. When you remove yourself without bitterness, he starts understanding that your patience was a gift, not a trait he was entitled to. That realization can be heavy because it reframes the entire relationship. A peaceful exit also removes resentment from the equation. You don't poison the memory. You don't leave behind emotional scars he can dismiss. Instead, you leave behind clarity. He remembers you as calm, grounded, self-aware, and that version of you becomes hard to replace because it wasn't loud, it was rare. When you stop chasing explanations, a man starts searching for meaning. He wonders why you didn't fight harder, why you didn't demand answers, why you didn't need closure. And that question keeps him mentally connected long after you've emotionally moved on. Letting go peacefully doesn't trigger his ego, it challenges it. Anger would have given him something to defend against. Tears would have reassured him of his importance. But peace tells him you're not emotionally dependent on his choices. And that realization shifts the power dynamic completely. A man begins to feel pulled back when he senses that you are no longer waiting. Not waiting for a text. Not waiting for clarity. Not waiting for him to decide. Waiting energy keeps him distant. Moving on energy makes him curious. He starts wondering what your life looks like now that he's no longer at the center of it. Peaceful detachment also communicates boundaries without a single sentence. You're not teaching him how to treat you with words. You're showing him with action. And men respect action more than explanation. He understands without being told that access to you now requires effort, intention, and consistency. When you choose peace, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop trying to be enough for someone who is unsure. And that self-certainty creates gravity. Because now, instead of feeling chased, he feels challenged. Not challenged to win you back, but challenged to rise to the level you already live at. Letting go peacefully isn't weakness. It's emotional mastery. And when a man witnesses a woman who can walk away without bitterness, without desperation, without losing herself, it leaves a permanent impression. Because strength like that doesn't beg to be noticed, it's felt long after the silence begins.